Hi everyone, welcome to Legally Yours. I'm here with the absolutely lovely Donna Ross from Donna Ross Dispute Resolution. And in this episode, we're actually going to talk a little bit about how you can optimize your online dispute resolution. So a bit about the best practices around that. So thank you so much for joining me, Donna.
Thanks, Karen, for having me again.
It's awesome. So let's get into it. So online dispute resolution, it's probably the only way that dispute resolution is happening at the moment. It needs to be online. And I think that whilst you've been doing this for a number of years and it has been around, it's being obviously used a lot more since the court systems are shut down and people are sort of going into this sort of virtual forum. So talk me through a little bit about etiquette with online dispute resolution, because this is something that probably a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, no, that's true. And as you said, even though it's been around for a long time, it's just skyrocketed recently because people can't mediate or arbitrate in person. So there are a number of things that are important, I think. And first of all, I talk a little bit about personal etiquette or your own appearance. I think it's important to dress the way you would dress for a mediation or an arbitration, whether you're an arbitrator, mediator, or representing clients in one of those procedures. And that would also apply probably to courts or anywhere else. So your own, the way you look, okay, don't have to wear high heels as we've heard necessarily, but be careful, because when you get up and you move away, we've seen the case of a newscaster is sitting in shorts not knowing that. So another thing, just from a technical standpoint, is if you do get up and walk away during a break, turn your video off. That's one thing. Your background, your audio too. Yes, of course. Another thing which is important is your environment, the background. So I happen to be sitting in my office, which is fine. I've had to move my wall around a bit because it's not the same as people sitting at my conference table, but especially when people are at home, be very careful about what's in the background. You don't want, especially as a neutral, a mediator, an arbitrator, to see political posters or books you read or laundry, whatever it might be. You might be at home, and it's great for coworkers to see how people live, but you need to maintain that professional appearance. Now, on backgrounds, there's something very interesting, and that's using virtual backgrounds. I would avoid that at all costs, whether it's mediation or arbitration, because with a virtual background, especially for the participants, you don't know if anybody else is there. So if they've got a virtual background, there could be other people participating. And remember, confidentiality is key to both mediation and arbitration, all forms of dispute resolution. So that's something important. Try to the best of your ability to make sure if you're working from home, there are no animals, kids, noise. If you're in an office, that the phone's not going to ring. Another thing really important too, on your computer, remove all your notifications, close all the windows, especially if you're going to be screen sharing. You don't want documents, especially from another client, to be popping up while you're doing that.
Yes.
Something my New York clip probably isn't a good example of, but speak more slowly, clearly. Sometimes there's a time lag, especially if the connections aren't that good. You might want to make sure that you're doing that. Mute yourself when you're not speaking and when you walk away, as you said. I think that's probably about it. It's just try to conduct yourself the way you would in a regular mediation. And you also have to build trust. So you have to get in touch with the parties beforehand, walk them through, test it with them. It's not always about the technical testing, but making them feel comfortable with you and the system, because it's not the same as when you meet someone in person and you shake their hand.
Oh, absolutely. All of that is so completely gold, particularly the virtual background one, because I hadn't even thought about that. And that's, like you say, confidentiality is key. So, so many great tips. What about technical equipment? So like hardware or platforms, have you got any recommendations for those?
Definitely. Well, first of all, hardware, it's better to use a PC, whether it's a Mac or a PC, or a tablet, better than a phone. Although I had one mediation where the computer didn't work and somebody had to revert to a phone. Make sure your webcam works well. Now, if you're in an arbitration very often, and even in a mediation, if it's a high-powered a dispute, then you'll have to have a webcam that has a 360-degree view, or sometimes you'll have two webcams to make sure there aren't different people in the room or witnesses aren't present or there's no coaching. So that's important. But just for basics, a webcam, Headset or not, depends on how good your sound is. I use them sometimes, but I tend to not always. And your microphone, you're going to want to test all of that beforehand, of course. See if you have one monitor or two. I have two monitors, so if I'm looking at my screen here, I'm not looking at the people here. So
Yeah.
it's good to see that. Now, if you're mediating or you're speaking to someone, eye contact, again, depending on cultures, is very important. And if I'm doing this as a mediator or an arbitrator, look like I'm not listening. And
Yeah.
if that is necessary, then you explain. You explain more than you would do in real life where people would see you're looking at a document because you don't have the whole view.
Yeah.
Just a couple of other things, your internet connection, very important. Much better wired or Wi-Fi. Do not, use public, places, and that's really important. What browser you're using. There's some platforms, and we'll speak about platforms that don't work with Safari. They only work with Chrome. Check the firewalls if you're in an office. You might find out that the day of you have a Citrix system or something and you can't get online at all.
Yeah.
And if you have to download the app beforehand, for example, if you're using Zoom, we'll do that beforehand and not as you're, logging on. And again, do all the tests with the others and and it'll all go well.
Oh, so good. So you did mention platforms, and you've mentioned obviously Zoom and a couple of. Have you got any other sort of platform recommendations?
Well, yeah, it's really important. So Zoom is really the go-to platform, but then there are platforms that you want to try if you can or avoid if not. So there are a couple of bespoke platforms which are really important to know about if you don't want to use Zoom or if clients won't use Zoom. One is Immediation, which is Australian based, and the other is Modron Spaces. There's another one called Blue Jeans. I haven't had much success with it, but what you want to make sure, not just for mediation, but also for arbitration, is that you have a platform that allows you to have private rooms. So Microsoft Teams might be good if you want to have a big team meeting or conference, but you can't break people up into private rooms the same way. And you don't want to have to be calling them afterwards on the phone for your private sessions. Same thing with WebEx or Skype. They're not really bespoke platforms. Zoom allows you to do all of that.
Yes, yes. Fantastic. Well, thank you. And just one quick question before we end. So everything that we've talked about in terms of the personal etiquette and all that, so that also, you can apply that to sort of mediation and arbitration as well, can't you? It's not just for, yeah.
Yes, of course. The personal etiquette, it applies to that and even negotiation and the fact of which platform you're choosing, because people say, oh, for mediation, you need private rooms. But for arbitration, you also need private rooms because the arbitrators need somewhere to speak. The parties need to go somewhere to speak. I'll have parties sometimes will ask if I can keep them online because the lawyers and the parties are no longer in the same place.
Yeah.
There's just a couple of other things that are one really important thing that I should have mentioned, and that's security, the security of the platform. And there have been questions about Zoom, and they've really been improving their security. And you have to make sure that when you are going on, and that'll maybe be a subject along with some specific procedural requirements for arbitration for another day, but make sure that you're using passwords, make sure that you control the access, that it's encrypted, and if you're going to be using documents for file transfer also, that you have a safe means of sharing those documents and the ability to share either agreements, settlement agreements, or documents, or a whiteboard, just a laundry list of things to look for in choosing a platform.
I absolutely love it. Well, look, thank you, Donna. A lot of this is so gold and so incredibly important at this time when we're using this medium more. And it's just something, like you say, it's been around for a while, but it's absolutely increased in terms of its use, and people really need to understand, the mechanisms and the pragmatic kind of details of it. So you can find Donna on our website at legallyyours.com.au if you'd like to talk to her further, or you can head just direct to donnarossdisputeresolution.com and you can connect with Donna there. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for watching.
Thanks, Karen.